Welcome to HopeCast. I'm your host, Diane Currie-Sam, and I have with me today Tatiana Estevez, the founder and CEO of Permalution. Permalution is a cloud and fog water collection tech company. Their solutions are, this is what I found interesting, more efficient than rain, more affordable than desalination plants, and safer than groundwater extraction. Welcome, Tatiana.
Hi, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, let's tell some stories. This is a storytelling podcast. So I want to start with your solution. Tell me about the cloud and fog water collection. What is the technology? What's it doing? How does it benefit people on the planet? So what's your solution story?
Yes, so actually, fog and cloud water collection is as old as rainwater collection, but way less known because we need to know some key meteorological factors to have successful projects. And that's where our technology, it's a main differentiator, and it's also our very strong suit that we have. We offer software and data for decision making for these projects. So we have developed an algorithm. It's the first step for every project. It pinpoints where the equation of a cloud or fog meets within a region for us to collect it as a water source. And once we know these hotspots, where they are, where we should be implementing this project, we pass on to the second unit of technology, which is called the water radar. It's a set of meteorological sensors conceived to analyze the cloud and the fog as a water source. So it provides estimated yields, water quality, and it allows us to build a cost-benefit analysis for the client, either if they want a return on investment analysis on current water sources they have, or for impact and environmental social impact measurement. We can do both. And once we know how much we can get from the cloud or the fog, and just as a parenthesis, nowadays, clouds and fog are being measured mainly in airports for visibility and mobility reasons, but not to be understood as a water source. So once we know how much water we can get from that spot, what applications we're going to do, we pass on to the third unit of technology, which is called the fog collectors. We have 4 different models. The one that we use the most in our projects is the premium one. It's 20 square meters. It's a passive technology, does not require energy to run. And we collect on average from 150 to 400 liters per day per unit. From our previous projects. So the way it works, the hardware, it's this mesh or membrane that is installed, and once the fog or the cloud passes through it, it retains the little droplets that are suspended in the air. That is what comprises fog and clouds, and it starts heavy raining on this membrane, then it goes into a gutter, and then depending on the application, an artificial water mass, a cistern, irrigation system, etc.
Great. Thank you. So, and I know you're startups. So if we could just imagine your company 5-10 years out, like what's the end game? Like how has this impacted, Canada and the rest of the world, wherever you're operating? Like what's your company's future story? Like where do you see this technology and how is it impacting people?
So yes, we are definitely introducing a new water source. We want to democratize it and make it available worldwide. If we don't collect fog or clouds, they go back into the atmosphere through temperature change, and it's therefore lost from the local hydric cycle. So we have been operating in regions where they're very much struck with drought, that they are exposed to fog 80% of the year. So our first project was with the government for sustainability and rural development. And it was a very successful project. It's been running for over 3 years. We got a recommendation letter from our first client or the government in this case. And it does make a change when we are in a fully remote region where no other water sources can reach, or if there are very expensive water sources as alternative. So that is the main impact we're delivering. We are making this new water source accessible for many uses, for many applications. And one of the very interesting things now, if we're thinking about the future, we are mapping the whole world for these hotspots. So we're starting to know where the most interesting places for relocation, for installation of different projects for different applications can be installed. We've had very significant discoveries. For example, the best hotspots of fog and clouds are not inland, they're offshore. Mm-hmm. So how can we tap into these massive water sources that it's very recurrent? It comes from the ocean. And by the way, just as a note, there's 5 types of fog in the world. We tap into the 2 most recurrent ones. One is coastal fog, that we need to be a certain margin from the coast. And the other one is elevation fog, which technically are clouds that were high enough that we can touch the clouds. Usually 500 meters and above, we can see that phenomenon. So that is where we see ourselves making available this water source for everyone, civilians, governments, private companies that need it. And we are doing a new application this year that it's the same principle. We're tapping into floating water, but we are starting to recycle industrial steam from different industries. So as we previously were tapping on horizontal, naturally occurring fog, now it's vertical, artificial fog. And we also see ourselves having a major impact in industries that use steam all around the world in the next 10 years.
The industrial steam, they're just letting it out from their processes, and you're collecting the water back into the ecosystem where they are. Like,
correct.
Nice. How is that going to change people's lives? Are they now going to be able to irrigate their fields? Are they going to be able to have drinking water?
Yes. So right now we're mainly working with governments and private companies that have an ESG agenda. And in terms of the governments, they are the first ones that live the water stress. A civilian, until they open the faucet and they see no water coming out, at that point they're gonna be conscious about it. So that's why we're working with governments that have their own private utility system or public utility systems, and we plug more water into the initial step, let's say, of filtration and treatment, so we don't have to set up a whole treatment plant in parallel. And that's one of the ways that we are creating an impact. We are increasing the yields of available water. We're also recycling, in the case of steam, that water that gets recycled, it's also reduced from the main traditional water stream that they take it from. So yes, it has a reduced impact in the environment. We have done projects for wildfire mitigation and also for conservation. This one was done in Mexico for wild orchids and some orchids.
I was going to ask you about that. I love the endangered orchids, because orchids are one of my favorite flowers. And they're just delicate and beautiful. And the thought of them disappearing just makes me sad. So tell me about that. I know I interrupted you, but I got excited about the orchids.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
That actually was our first pilot, our first project, that it's still alive. It's very successful. It got expanded, and they're still sending us picture of the orchids and everything that they're reproducing. So in this natural protected area in Mexico, that also it's drought impacted, but they have fog 80% of the year from coastal fog. We set up a fog collection project in this natural protected area in a very remote region. And the water that we were getting from the collector was pumped into a greenhouse that we installed there as well, where we do the reproduction of orchids. Of these different orchids. Some of them, they are the endangered ones, and we're also reproducing not so endangered ones. It's quite hard to differentiate them from the bulb and from when they're very small. But on average, we've been reinserting back into the ecosystem on average 300 units of these orchids per year. And we've had about a 70% survival rate. So that is something that we're very proud and happy that we're buying some time for some species. And we've had a beautiful story with that one too. We're starting to think about putting cameras in our fog collectors. There was a massive wildfire in that natural protected area. And there's these big cats from Mexico that actually took shelter under our collectors because there was water there. So a lot of people were very excited about that, us as well, of course.
Yes.
But now we want to see what's going on around. So we might put some cameras on our.
That would be that would be fun to see, right? To see how the system is reacting. And I am also interested in the wildfire mitigation. Of course, you're aware of all the wildfires in Canada and what's been happening. I mean, my own sister was evacuated from the shoe swap this summer. Like, it's tough stuff. So, and very much in our faces in this day and age. So could you tell me about how your solution works with wildfire mitigation?
Yes, so we actually got quite some visibility from the wildfire season this year. in Canada. It was a happy problem for us. At least, yes, we got recognized as one very potential solution for this. And it's actually interesting because Canada is the place with most fog and clouds in the world. But we do not perceive a lack of water yet. So most of our projects have been internationally because of that. We're hoping that now we can deploy some projects here in Canada as well for mitigation of wildfires. There's different strategies that we adopt with our technology, either artificial water masses where also animals can take refugees, also for firefighters to have an additional water source to counteract the fires. And we also have an irrigation system that comes straight from the collectors that keeps the whole area or the area of application constantly humid. So it's not as prone to catch on fire as if it would be if it's totally dry. So those are some of the main strategies that we've been implementing.
So partly during the fire season, but also partly long-term mitigation, so it doesn't get as dry. Am I understanding it correctly? Okay, good. So tell me about the people you work with. What do they mean to you on your team? I mean, I don't need to know everyone on your team, but kind of tell me about the people. What's it like working for Permalution?
So actually, we're now a team of 13 people, and it's been a great ride. The way that I met each one of them has been in a very special, if not magical way. I'm very proud of my team. It's people that I admire, that I really enjoy working with, that we have a lot of trust in communication, in being there for each other, in helping each other out. We all share this vision of what we want to accomplish. And it's just beautiful. I love it when we are a very international team. So we get to meet for project installations and to meet a few clients. So when we get to meet all together, it's definitely a lot of fun. We catch up on many things. We're all very much cloud nerds. So I have a great team. I know that I'm the face of the company and usually I'm the one that gets interviewed, but I always say, I'm just the face. I wouldn't be able to do everything that we're doing without the amazing team that Permalution has. And I want to give a shout out to my team.
I got to tell for the people who are listening on the audio version, Tatiana's face completely lit up when I mentioned team. So that's fantastic. Another thing I'm interested in is the sense of collaboration. You mentioned you're an international company. You must have like partners and vendors. What have you learned from them? Is there a good story about, hey, we worked with this partner? You mentioned the government, or lots of governments are interested. Is there any sort of partnerships you're intrigued about, or anything you've learned about? What are you looking for in that area, collaborating with other companies or organizations?
Yeah, it's well, we've come a long way. We were actually talking with the team about how our first projects were these very little projects. It was up until this year, it was me and my team building these modules in a garage. We could build maybe 3 per month. Now we have a manufacturing plant. We can build from 20 to 40 units per month. And that allowed us to tap into larger contracts and larger partnerships and collaborations. We're now playing with big players. And that also shifted the way that we interact, the negotiation, the sales cycle. So it's a constant learning process for me, for sure. But I like to keep it very human. It doesn't matter if it was a small project of one collector for a small, community, or if it's a 250 unit for a government massive application for agriculture. I think it's still very important to keep the humanity and know that we're dealing with another human at the end of the line, and it doesn't matter the rank, the bureaucracy, and so on. It's something that I like to keep in mind, and it has bore some great fruits, creating these relationships with people in governments that I admire and that for me are mind-blowing, what they are working on and what they achieve. And sometimes I'm talking with one of my partners or clients at this point, and she's like, no, I just closed a 6 billion contract for a water project here in the government. And it's very inspiring too, to see where we're heading as well.
Yeah, for sure. So you were, speaking of where we're heading, I mean, you were recently at the Chicago Venture Summit, Future of Climate Tech. I know also Permalution is a finalist for the Thrive Global Impact Challenge. So congratulations. But I'm just wondering from the CEO perspective and your founder, like how did that feel to you to reach those milestones? And I know there's more to come, but how did that feel to you? And also what do you see the future of climate tech and I guess water tech as well? Like, where do you see the future going in the bigger picture?
So I would like to add that I started with this idea right after university in 2015. I spent a full year in California working on it. And then I saw many challenges, especially as a Canadian, trying to work with the water industry in California, where it's highly regulated. 51% of the company needs to be from the US to get certain permits and so on. So I put everything on the shelf and I said, okay, it's not the time for this right now. And I went back to the corporate world. So I was working for global affairs. In Mexico, I got a contract. Then I stayed for 3 years working at Bosch's Innovation Center at Connectory for a few years as well as head of innovation. And I gave a talk at some point, and someone in the audience, it was a talk about all the clean tech solutions and projects I had been involved in. One of them was Permalution. And someone in the audience actually reached out and said, hey, I'm from the government of Mexico. We really need this. We'll give you everything you need to jumpstart this again with us. So in 2019, I restarted everything, and it gave me a lot of hope because I was like, okay, now there's the attention, maybe not for the right reasons, but attention at least on climate solutions, climate adaptation, new water sources. A lot of people were telling me I was crazy when I began with this idea back in 2015, and see how this type of solutions are being received by people, governments, decision makers. It's very refreshing, and it does give me hope for the future and where we're heading in terms of climate tech.
It's good to hear, like that people are waking up and back in 2015, they might have said, oh, yeah, that's something we'll look at in the future. Or they would have, but now they're suddenly like it sounds to me like we're going to do it now. We're going to get behind you. If you found you obviously found the right partner in that case, right?
Yeah, and something that gave me this type of nostalgic, happy moments as well was looking into my mailbox many years ago and how I was reaching to everybody and trying to, put our solutions up front and educate people on how they should adopt them. And now, once I restarted everything since 2019, all of the clients we've had and all of the projects, they came to us. We haven't deployed a sales strategy yet or a marketing strategy yet. That's a great indicator for us. We've had exponential growth year after year. So it's definitely a great indicator and change in the perception of people.
Nice. Now, what is your pitch to quote the younger generation, not, someone who might be where you were 10 years ago? What would you tell them and I know they're faced with a really uncertain future. All of us are, with climate change and everything that's happening in the world. What would you tell them? What's your mentorship advice to?
So I would say to first definitely keep optimistic. A lot of people tell me that I'm very optimistic and that it's something that I'm not looking to change. I think we need more optimist people who are sensitive to the reality of what climate change is doing, climate adaptation solutions. So for someone that is just starting, it's yes, be hopeful, be brave, even if being brave and courageous is just taking a small step towards a goal. It's still courageous and it's still brave. I think that's how magic happens. And when I tell the story of Permalution, I couldn't have planned it at all. There is no way, the way the universe or God or whatever name aligns thing, when the right person is there to make the project happen. And there's a book I really enjoyed. It's called The Big Think. And it says that people don't have ideas. Ideas have people. So if you work on yourself and adopt the skills and the mindset and the intention, yes, you can create amazing things. Believe in yourself and keep going. We need
I'm
you.
inspired. Thank you. My next question was going to be, how important do you think the stories of hope are? But I think you've already answered that. Yeah.
It's very important. And one of the main things that I also do in my pitch when I'm in these competitions and these events that you mentioned, it's bring part of the story as well. I think that stories are what connect people as well, what brings us again more into a human level. Sometimes if someone shoots numbers and technical data, we're not necessarily gonna remember what the company was, instead if it's something that touches our heart and that we relate to in a story. So that is definitely something that I strongly believe in. So thank you for sharing this story.
Well,
I'm very
thank
much with
you.
it.
Thank you. So the company is permalution.com. The link will be in the comments. You have a fundraising round on the go. Is there anything else you'd like to, an event coming up, something you're excited about, to let our listeners know what's happening?
Yeah, so yes, we are doing our fundraising round, our seed round. We're close to start closing it. So if you are an investor in the climate or water sector, and especially if you lead rounds, please do get in touch with us. We still have a space for you. And in terms of the next events that I'm excited about, we are starting to deploy our largest project so far in Abu Dhabi. So we're going to be traveling there. Very likely we'll be there for the COP28 as well. That it's very exciting for us and a great opportunity for visibility and showing our solutions. And the trip to Santa Clara as well for the Thrive Global Impact Challenge, that it's definitely going to be a show. I'm very, very excited as well. I already have some meetings lined up also with a few investors from the region. And yes, I look forward to everything that it's left for this year and the next one as well. I'll be traveling to South Korea and Thailand also to meet with some potential partners. And that's where we are at the moment. Very exciting.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. This was Tatiana Estevez from Permalution at permalution.com. And please check out their company, invest, and follow them. They've got some amazing stories to tell. And Tatiana, I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Diane. It was a pleasure to be here.